Hello, today we will be talking about stick metal arc welding and operating a stick welder safely. We will begin by speaking about personal protection equipment. To the left is Bryce with correct equipment. He is wearing tightly woven pants and shirt, long sleeve and long pant leg. He is also wearing heavy-duty leather boots and leather welding gloves. On his head is an auto-darkening welding helmet and safety glasses. Elise to the right is wearing incorrect clothing. She is wearing a short-sleeved shirt and her pants are frayed, making them extremely easy to catch fire. She is wearing normal shoes and she has yard work gloves on. Here we have a tombstone welding machine. Very old and very simple, easy to use machine. You have your on-off switch on the left side. On the right side you have a switch for changing between DC plus, DC minus, and AC polarity. Then in the middle you have a dial to change the amperage with the amps listed underneath. Under the amps on either side are where you connect the cords and table clips and electrode holder. Here we have a much newer machine. It is very similar to the tombstone seen previously, but with one major distinction. It has no polarity switch. The ground clamp should be on DC minus while the rod clamp should be on DC plus. The amp knob is in the upper left with the on-off switch lower below. The area in which you weld can be as dangerous as when you are welding. Make sure you have a protective screening to protect the eyes of those around you. Make sure all wires are cleaned up as they could be a possible tripping hazard. Your welding station should be always cleaned of any welding rods or anything else that could possibly trip you as well. Make sure all gas canisters are at least 35 feet away from you or it could possibly explode. Striking an arc can be extremely hard if you don't know how to. If you are using a 7018 rod, which is the most used rod currently, then 125 amps is a good starting point. Make sure before striking an arc, have your welding helmet down over your face or else the brightness of the arc will blind you. When you try to strike the rod, it is very much like striking a match. Just drag over the metal as seen in front of you. If it doesn't want to work at first, then continue trying to drag it. If the rod sticks, then you can try turning up the amps by about 5 intervals. If the rod instead is overheating and turning red or even bending or melting, then turn the amps down by 5 or 10 amp intervals until you get the desired strike. After you successfully are able to strike an arc, then you are able to pull a bead, which is welding. Again, make sure your helmet is down or else you will be blinded. In order to correctly pull a bead, you must continue the bead in a straight line at a slow and steady pace. If you go too fast, then the bead will be too high and rest on top of the metal instead of burning down into it. That bead may even split. If you go too slow, then the bead will be too deep and may even melt through the metal. A similar effect may occur if the amperage is too hard or too cold. If it is too hot, then there will be a lot of splattering metal, and if it is too cold, then it will be raised and hard to melt down into the metal. After you are finished welding, you will notice a dark colored layer over the weld. This is called slag. You have to chip this off with a chipping hammer in order to see the weld. You want to hold the hammer at an angle and chip away from you so that the hot slag does not hit you. Afterwards, you want to use the brush to scrape off any extra slag or dust that built up from the weld. You want to use the vice grips to bring the hot metal to the water. Caution, just because the metal isn't red hot doesn't mean it is cooled off. If steam comes off of it after sticking it into the water, put it back in water until steam stops. Bring the cool metal back to the workstation and plug in your wire grinder. You then want to grind any dust and dirt left over until the weld and metal around it is metallic and shiny. Now Elise is dressed for welding and is ready to work safely.